Hey guys, it's Dan from Shasta Above Adventures, and today I'm coming to you from Zip's place, which is a Forest Service rental cabin that is just across the road from Glacier National Park and a couple of miles away from Marias Pass, and technically in the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex, more specifically the northern section of it called the Great Bear Wilderness. The Zip of Zip's place was a 4-foot 11-inch lady in the 1940s and 50s who loved to hunt and fish and ride horses in this area. So her and her husband bought this cabin and spent many wonderful trips here, and eventually they sold it to the Forest Service, and that's why it's a Forest Service rental cabin now. It's mid-November, and it means it's time to sit back and think about the great hikes that we've all done this year, and also time to do long-term reviews of some of the gear that started out new at the beginning of the year and let you know how things have worked out. And the first bit of gear up for review is my shoes, the Hoka One One Speedgoat 4. Now, I don't want to repeat all the stuff, the basic information that I gave in the first video, so I'll just make a link to that right here if you missed that video. One thing I want to clarify from the first video is that I have since learned that although the company is indeed French, the phrase Hoka One One actually is Maori, and the Maori people being, of course, the indigenous people of New Zealand. And the Maori phrase, Hoka One One, apparently means to fly over the earth, which is a great idea. I don't know if I did any flying over the earth with these shoes, but I have come to really love them. They are really good shoes for me. And first off, I just want to address some of the concerns that I did bring up in that first video and let you know how those things have played out. Now, the first thing is the sizing. The first pair of shoes I got were the extra wide, and it's a great thing that these Speedgoat 4s are available in an extra wide, and I usually need that, but I thought that it was just a little too slippery side to side, and so I got a second pair of shoes, these that are just the regular sizing, and these have worked out great for that. I haven't had problems sliding around at all, and it also wasn't too tight that it was pinching or anything like that. So first point, sizing, regular, worked out just fine for me. Second thing to talk about is the deep cushioning of these soles that provides for underfoot protection. Now that for me has by far been the best selling point about these shoes. I have been able to go all day with 20-mile days with a full pack and not have the kind of foot fatigue that I normally would get from any other shoe that I've used after that much pounding on a hard rocky trail. So that's been a really good thing. I was worried about adapting to the height of the stack because of all the cushioning, but you know, like anything, you just get used to it, and I don't think I've tripped any more than I normally would, and it's really paid off for protecting my feet at the end of a long day. Now, I will admit that some subscribers have commented on their belief that that cushioning kind of absorbs energy and takes something out of their stride. All I can tell you is that in my experience, that hasn't been the case. I don't feel like I've lost energy at all from the extra cushioning, and it's worked out really great. So that hasn't been a problem at all. Incidentally, I wanted to add that like with all of the hiking shoes that I use, I did take out the insole that came with the shoe and replaced it with a Superfeet insole. And so that probably also plays a role in the ability for the shoe to absorb those long days of hiking. Now, a third thing that I was concerned about was fearing that these shoes would tend to increase my tendency to walk on the outside of my soles. I can't remember if that's pronation or supination. I'll put that on the screen right now. But you know, the tale can be told from looking at the soles, because after a whole season of hiking, if that were the case, this edge would be really worn down, and you can see that it isn't. It's actually wearing very smoothly and doesn't seem to be having any issues at all with that. Again, I'll mention that another subscriber complained that these shoes would make them walk like a penguin. And there is a little bit of that, I got to admit. I think I do kind of tend to have my toes a little wider than normal, but haven't had any twisted ankles or anything like that, which was part of what I was fearing. So that hasn't turned out to be a problem at all either. Another concern I had in the beginning was the stiffness of this tongue, that I could feel it pushing against the front of my ankle when I would first put the shoes on. And I wondered if that would wear over those long mile days and get to be an issue. Hasn't been a problem at all. Really, I kind of stopped noticing completely after a few weeks of using the shoes. So no trouble with the stiffness of the tongue. As far as cons go, the main thing has to do with the upper and just how kind of thin that upper is. Now that has led to two problems. The first is just a lack of protection for the foot. Most of the time going down a normal trail, that's not an issue. You don't really need foot protection on the top of your foot. But I have had times when I was working my way up some scree slope and a rock would roll down and hit the top of the foot there and did actually bruise my foot a time or two. That's a pretty rare condition, rare situation. So to me, it's not a deal breaker at all. And certainly the thinness of that material aids in its ability to dry. And by the way, this is a very quick drying shoe. I've been very happy with that aspect of it. The other concern about the top is actually something I hadn't even noticed until I came to do this review and was looking really closely at the front of the shoe. Someone had asked about cracks forming across the front of the upper where the shoe bends. And that hasn't obviously happened, but when I was examining that and thinking about it, I did notice right on the edge of the shoe, there are little abraded edges, frayed holes almost, forming in all the places where the shoe normally bends. And this is after 300 plus miles, so I think that I'm not too concerned about that. I can accept that, those are just starting now, and so I probably am going to get at least another 100, maybe 200 or even 300 miles out of this. And most of my shoes last about 2 seasons. That's kind of the rule that I look for based on the amount of hiking that I do. And so that would be in the 500 to 600 mile range. So I guess you got to ask yourself if that seems like a reasonable lifespan for a shoe. These probably are going to form holes, but again, it's on the top of the shoe, and I'm not sure that that would really impact me. I don't mind wearing the shoe for a while with holes in the top, as long as the bottoms are still good. And you can see that the bottoms have gotten chewed up a bit. But again, if you've seen the trip videos that I've done of trips I've done this year, you know that I've been on a lot of kind of extreme and rocky trails. So to me, that seems like pretty normal wear and tear on the sole of a shoe. And the Vibram has worked out great for not being slippery. So bottom line, really happy with these shoes. They've been pretty much one of the best shoes I've had in terms of underfoot protection over those long haul days. I could imagine how they could fix this a little bit just by having a tiny bit of leather that comes up around the front of the shoe, providing a little bit of foot protection and maybe reinforcing those weak points that are probably going to be the first points of failure. But I'm happy with them and probably will buy another pair. Although another thing that I have learned since I made the first video is that Lone Peak is now making an Ultra that does have Vibram soles. And you remember that's the one thing I won't do is buy a shoe that doesn't have Vibram soles. So I might have to give those a try too. You remember in the first video I said that the Lone Peaks fit really well too, and I would have got them if they came in a Vibram sole. So now they do. I might have to give those a try. Okay guys, that's it for today. Next up, I'll be doing a long-term review of the Enlightened Equipment Visp raincoat that I've been using all season. So don't forget to hit the subscribe and the bell notification if you want to make sure that you hear that one. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.